Hey, Sharks fans. It was a night to remember for Joe Thornton in the Enshrinement and the Hockey Hall of Fame. First off, let's say congrats to all the enshrinees here, on the likes of which Zdeno Chara, Duncan Keith, Alexander Mogilny, finally, uh, Brianna Decker, great career with USA Hockey in the women's program, Jennifer Botterill, who did great things for Team Canada and such. But we're here to talk about Joe Thornton. Um, you know, I was late getting home tonight from work, so couldn't talk too much about it, right then and there. But what a speech from Jumbo. Um, it's it's one of those things where you appreciate him as a person, and you can tell that it really got to him emotionally. If you've watched his speech, and love to play it, but I know we can't. But you can definitely tell that it was a special moment for him, and it's a special moment for Sharks fans. And let's be honest here, this kind of closes an era of sorts. Um, it'll definitely close when Patty gets into the Hall of Fame. Of the success that era, that team, that duo, uh, really did wonders for the Sharks. But we're here right now to talk about Jumbo. And I think Jumbo's impact was just something unbelievable. Never have the Sharks traded for anybody of that ill will. And it was kind of funny. I went through my archives, and I had this on my personal YouTube channel so we don't get copyright strike. But it's kind of funny how things just started to play out for uh, this game. And you can see this was about 5 minutes into a game, November 30th, 2005, against the Sharks and Stars. The Sharks were on a 10-game winless streak. They had struggled mightily. But then Randy and Drew noticed something that was happening.
We're in the morning skate. The scratches for tonight's game appeared to be Nico Dimitrakos, as Letnin's shot is saved by Nabokov. Nico Dimitrakos and Jim Fahey appeared to be the players who weren't going to play tonight. They are both in the lineup. We'll have to.
And then something happened
back to
during
Dallas.
the
The
intermission.
Stars lead the Sharks 2-1. Randy Hahn with Drew Remenda. We can now confirm the San Jose Sharks arguably have just made the biggest trade in their history. The Sharks have another Thornton. Joe Thornton from the Boston Bruins comes to the Sharks in exchange for Marco Sturm, Wayne Primo, and Brad Stewart. Rarely do you see a 3-for-1 trade, but rarely does a player of Joe Thornton's status move. So Joe Thornton is a San Jose Shark as of tonight. Your thoughts?
Well, you get a superstar. Joe Thornton is a terrific player. Unfortunately for San Jose Shark fans, you lose three great guys. Marco Sturm, Brad Stewart, and Wayne Primo, all guys that you'd love on your hockey team. But the old saying, you have to give a lot to get a lot. You've got a lot with Joe Thornton. He is the younger cousin of Scott Thornton. He is a guy who is named on Team Canada, will definitely play in the Toronto Olympics.
It was one of those trades where you just went, whoa. And it still is the biggest trade in Sharks history. The most successful trade in Sharks history. Let's put it that way. Jumbo has mentioned it many times that he was having dinner with Tabea and some of his family, and then he gets a call. And he gets a call that from Bruins general manager Mike O'Connell saying, "You've been traded to San Jose. You got to get your butt up to Buffalo, where you'll play 2 days later." And right off the get-go, that first game in Buffalo, he gets a couple assists in that game with having Jonathan Chichu and his cousin Scott Thornton on his wings. you could tell right then and there something was changing. The Sharks would go up to win 5 in a row, and then they would lose 5 in a row. But honestly, I think that was the year that the Sharks had their best chance. The top 4 seeds were eliminated in the playoffs after round 1. The Sharks ended up being the top seed, only to be upset by the Edmonton Oilers. But Jumbo had such a big year, 94 points, if I'm not mistaken, uh, after the trade to San Jose, 125 points that entire year. He'd end up going with, I think, another 114 in the following year in San Jose. But most of which, Jonathan Chichu, 56 goals, wins the Rocket Richard, the only Shark to win the Rocket Richard trophy. The Jumbo would go on to win the Art Ross. Shark had never won the Art Ross before. You know, that's how much his gameplay changed everything. Now you have the likes of Patrick Marleau, Jonathan Chichu that year. And then it would evolve to Devin Setaguchi, Danny Heatley. I mean, the number of players. And then eventually you get to Joe Pavelski and everything. The guy had an impact on everyone. And it's funny, you hear about that trade, and it was surprising. This, you'll see 19. This is actually Marco Sturm's last jersey he wore as a Shark before he got traded. The funny thing enough, a few weeks later, once everything was settled down, I took a picture with Jumbo. And in typical Jumbo style, it was, hey, bud, it looks like you need to get a new jersey there, bud, because I was wearing Wayne Primo's jersey after he got traded. So this is probably the year after that. But Jumbo, being that guy, being that awesome, happy-go-lucky guy, I mean, posing for pictures, of course, looking very cool with his sunglasses and his beard on. I think the stealth jersey had just been unveiled. That's why he's wearing that one. But the personality of Jumbo, happy-go-lucky, having fun, sticking up for his teammates. I mean, we'll never forget the Tomas Hertl comment where, if he were to score 4 goals, yeah, But a few years later, he had that hat trick against Boston. I think he'd gone like 8 years without a hat trick. And then all of a sudden, and I remember Logan Couture talking about this with Jason Demers. He's like, he might actually do it. He might actually score 4, first off. And then secondly, do what he said to a Vancouver reporter, off the record. But this one clip from Joe, it just epitomizes him completely.
Being inducted to the Hall of Fame means you're awesome. Did he say that? There you go. That's what it means. Being inducted to the Hall of
Jumbo, calm down. See, he's that exciting, and the emotion that came out tonight in his speech was just uplifting. Thanking, of course, friends, family, teammates, coaches. Of course, even after Gary Bettman called him Dumbo. Oh my God, really? Gary, really? Jumbo had a clapback. He's like, I could have given him a left hook because I lost $7 million. But if it weren't for the lockout, he would not have been his love of his life to Bea. And we would grow on to create a wonderful family. But Jumbo had so much fun. I mean, it was just looking at everything this weekend. He was back in St. Thomas, his hometown in Ontario, Canada, for his St. Thomas Stars, his junior B team, reading out the lineup, getting emotional just being in the in the locker room again, with his son River, or talking to the fan who was talking to him after his flight got delayed. It took him 10 hours to get up to from like Boston to Toronto, just to have him come off of the stage, give him a big hug. And don't tell me that a whole bunch of us never had that with Jumbo. That's how Jumbo is. If you were fortunate to have that interaction with Jumbo, that's how he is. He made you feel special in every way. Thankfully, he had his clothes on for the most part. Poor Brody and Curtis Brown, but that's beside the point. But that's how he resonated. That's his impact. That's all stuff on the ice, or off the ice, excuse me. On the ice, my gosh, how many? I mean, you can go through highlight packages of highlight packages on YouTube and see like that pass that he made in Dallas to Patrick Marleau, where he looks over one way. He says he looked into the reflection of the glass to find Patty. I mean, Dallas Star announcers were just in awe of it too. Or the one that where Joe Thornton feeds Patrick Marleau to win Game 3 against Detroit. Numerous passes. Help setting up Joe Pavelski, or getting the rim around, having Jumbo throw it back to the point to his buddy Brent Burns. His buddy who had the long beard, and then they posed nude for ESPN magazine. But get it around the boards to Burnsy to set it up to go to Joe Pavelski so he can tip it home. And of course, that magical 2016 run, he had a hell of a year. And not the least of which, in that I think it was the conference finals in 2016. I think it was game 2 where they tied the series up. He's on the bench. In between the glass are kids dancing to some music, and he's throwing stuff up. He's dancing with them. It's just that fun way of looking at things and looking at life and looking at hockey and having fun with it. Although, yes, you have to get to work. But Jumbo just seemed to be that guy that had that charisma, or as the kids say, riz. Now, look at me trying to be all hip and such. But being a league leader in assists, being a top 10 in NHL history in assists and points. Heck, even games. I mean, I know we teased it numerous times on here, especially me. It's like, hey, he's getting close to Patty's record, but he would retire after that. So you look at when he's getting hugs from Austin Matthews, after the ceremonial puck drop on Sunday night for the Hall of Fame game between Toronto and Carolina. Austin, Mitch Marner, and everybody just appreciate the impact that he had. And Florida, he even mentioned, Florida Panthers and the Boston Bruins. He talked about that tonight in his speech and how it helped him and how he grew as a man thanks to those guys. But of course, why it's such an impact in San Jose is this is, and see, I don't want to disrespect others, like the likes of Igor Larionov, Rob Blake, among others. We won't mention Ed Belfour or Jeremy Roenick and such. This one feels like the true first Sharks player to get into the Hall of Fame, where his impact was in San Jose. And I mentioned specifically player because Dan Rusanowski is also in the Hall of Fame. He got in a couple of years ago. so that's where it kind of hits you a little bit. It kind of resonates. The impact comes into play with him because there was always that confidence with Jumbo that he was going to do whatever it takes while having fun walking around topless in Pittsburgh during the Cup final, or having fun in the locker room with that. And I just couldn't I just couldn't think of us not talking about Jumbo before it, because it is sort of an end of an era, you know, with Vlasic getting bought out, you know, and the guys are now development coaches or helping out Mike Greer on the staff. It's nice that their impact will stay on there. Yes, Macklin Celebrini is still living with Jumbo. Love it, you know, and you hope that they learn, whether it's off the ice or when Jumbo's on the ice, to share his knowledge, share his wealth, share his fun, share his enjoyment of the game with it. So, but that'll do it for here. Jumbo, if you are watching, trademark Brody Brazil. Thank you for what you did to the Sharks. Thank you what you brought to San Jose for us Sharks fans to enjoy and appreciate and to celebrate you for the fantastic run you had in Teal, and to continue building that legacy with our future Sharks. Or should I say future Sharks legends? No pressure at all, right? So appreciate each and every you enjoying this. Hope you have a wonderful day. Sharks and Wild later on today. We'll see you then. Have a good one.